And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Host tonight, Joey Rio. I'm Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our special guest tonight is SUNY Potsdam's women's basketball, coach. And welcome aboard, Brittany Cohen.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
But I've been looking forward to this, actually. You have a lot of history and family. And the Cohen name has been brought up several times on our program. And of course brought up by
all good things. All good things.
All good things. Especially from the man himself, Jerry Welch, who speaks very highly of I believe it's your grandfather. So
yep.
So I'm gonna swing it over to Joey, and we'll start it off.
Okay, Coach. Thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it. And usually with the people that I know well, I jump right in and start asking questions. This really is our formal introduction here. So
nice to meet you.
So when we have a show like that, instead of me just jumping in and asking wayward dumb questions, we like to have you give us a little bio about yourself, where you went to high school, college, and all the jobs leading up to, or the jobs that you want to mention leading up to your present job as women's head basketball coach at SUNY Potsdam. Give us a chance to hear some things, and we'll start feeding off of that. How's that sound?
All right, great. Like we said, my name's Brittany Cohen. Born and raised Syracuse, New York. I went to James DeWitt High School, just outside of Syracuse. My first semester of college, I went to Division II school, Assumption, and then I had bounced around a lot, transferred back home, went to OCC for that sophomore year. We actually had a nice little run. We made it to the national championship game, where we were 35-0 going into the final game, and we ended up losing in the national championship. So I like to pretend that we went to 35-0. I skipped the 36th game. And then after that season, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go and play. I kind of wanted to stay closer to home, so I ended up going to Portland with a bunch of my teammates, and that's where I went and graduated a degree in kinesiology. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to keep basketball kind of, big part of my life. I didn't know if I wanted to, get rid of it right away, so I tried to keep it as much as possible in my life, and I ended up being a grad assistant at Lemoyne for a year, and then I helped out my high school a little bit at JD for a season, and then I ended up going to Nazareth, where I was an assistant on the women's basketball team, and then for a year I did an internship down in Texas with the Dallas Mavericks for a year. I got to work in their player development department. I'm sure you guys have some questions about that we'll get into. And then the opportunity at Potsdam opened up, and, I was kind of like, hey, I might as well give it a shot. I had the personal connection there. And as you guys know, and most people watching might know, but my grandfather was an assistant up there for, it was like 42 years. He was kind of helping out at Potsdam until he passed away a few years ago. So that was kind of the push I wanted to jump into head coaching, and everything kind of fell into place, and I ended up getting the job. And I'm just so grateful to be at such a great institution, and great history there with my family, and not too far from Syracuse. So it's just nice to have a nice first head coaching gig there. So it's been great.
I'm curious, you mentioned the national championship at OCC. And North Country Community College women's team's gotten there 2 years in a row. Tell us a little about. I obviously you're not very happy about the loss, but tell us a little bit about that experience, because I don't think a lot of people realize, and I'm wondering if it's the same as it was then as it is now, where you go and you're going to play 8 teams are invited, and you play 3 games, and it's a trip.
Yeah.
Where was
Yep.
your national championship played?
Our national championship was in the sunny, warm Rochester, Minnesota, in the middle of March.
Oh.
So, yes, our hotel was connected to the Mayo Clinic, which was kind of cool. Like, my dad's a doctor, so I was interested in that. But it was just like, come on, like, give me something like Virginia, like Florida. But I think it's changed a little bit since I played in the, I think it was 2009, 2010 season. Usually we play, we have all of our conference games and non-conference, and then we go into a conference tournament, and then you have to go, and so once you win that, you go into the regional tournament, which a lot of it is, our conference is pretty strong. So we were playing like the three same teams a couple times, and then usually play somebody out of the other part of the region. Winner of that then ends up going to the national championship. So it's like you said, it's the number of sections. What I didn't know when I was in high school is that there are different divisions, just like there's Division I, Division II, and Division III in NCAA. And junior college is the same thing, where Division I and Division II, you can get kind of, athletic scholarships, and where Division III you can't. So OCC, Onondaga Community College, shout out to the Lasers. They are Division III, so there's only so many regions in the country. So I think there's 8. I'm pretty sure it was 8. And then they kind of, it's interesting because they kind of pick them, they seed it 1 through 8. So we were the 1 seed. We were undefeated going into it. But I would say that the team that we played, that was the ace team, was way better than whoever was 4th and 5th. Like, we remember watching the games and we were like, are you kidding? But we ended up, I don't even remember who we lost to, because like I said, I blocked it out of my memory, but I think it was like a team from like Wisconsin, like Madison ATC or whatever. But I always kind of knew about, junior college basketball just from the local stuff. And my grandfather used to coach at Canton ATC. So before everybody knows Canton now, it's a 4-year institution. It used to be 2-year, and he actually coached the men's and the women's. So
were you, now Pete and I had the privilege, 5-6 years ago, we broadcasted a game from that facility at OCC. Was that facility the one that's there now that they play their games in? Was that there then when you were
funny,
playing?
I was just about to say ask the same question.
Because Pete and I, we were just amazed at that facility. It's like, holy cow, this is a junior college facility. It was amazing.
I think it's called they call it the SRC Arena. They updated like the facilities and everything, but see, all the good stuff usually happens after I leave. So I did not get the privilege to play in that. We were up in the main gym. I think it's Allen Hall, which is still very nice. But they got that arena. It's been really great, especially for the local high schools. A lot of them been doing the sectionals there instead of up at the dome. I think it's kind of a better atmosphere. You get a lot more people. It looks a bit more packed instead of kind of the vacant dome that you get at the sectional finals. So they do men's and women's, or boys and girls basketball there too. So. But no, sadly, I did not get to experience that.
Yeah, a few years ago, my oldest daughter played softball for North Country Community College, and they ended up playing at OCC on their new field there. And I was driving around, and I was just amazed at how much has gone into that campus. It's a very beautiful campus.
They have really upped it. They were kind of in the transition of doing it. I think maybe a year or 2 before I got there, I think they had just put in like those really nice kind of on-campus dorms and suites, apartments. I think they're adding to that or making more, but they've really updated that campus, and it's just been great. It's been great for this kind of Central New York area. Like I said, with local sports, they're having big tournaments there, and then they use it as the Y. So it's been great for the local community to also have another place to kind of come and use facilities.
Joey and I were very impressed with the facilities there. We did a game, I can't remember, from the Malone Huskies. The ladies were there, and we were covering for WICY in Malone. So we're in awe.
It was against your alma mater too. It was against JD, if I remember right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I know you want to talk a little bit. I would like to not talk as much about Lemoyne, but I would love to hear. I'm familiar with Nazareth. So I would love to hear a story of Nazareth out there.
Yeah, how I ended up getting it, one of another JD grad, Justin Stern. He's now the men's head coach at CAD's college of the men's team. He took over that a couple years ago, but he had been the men's assistant at Nazareth, and he had known that the women's coach was looking for a new assistant, and it actually turned out that the head coach was actually a North Country guy. His name is Devin Gotham. So I think he was from up in the Colton area, if I'm not mistaken. So him and his twin, great guy, great family. I really, really enjoyed working for him. So that's kind of how that worked out. And then I remember once I got made it to the internship in Dallas, I was fortunate enough I actually got to meet one of the Nazareth alumni greats, Jeff Van Gundy. So he really loves to talk about that. If you ever see him do the NBA broadcast, it's kind of every time he's on there, he brings up Division III Nazareth. So it was great. It was just a new experience for me, having just been only playing really at the SUNY level. And so it's interesting to kind of see the other types of basketball, the Empire 8. Even though all the leagues are changing every year, there's always a team moving from one place to another. But it was just kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah. So you go from Nazareth down to so was it from Nazareth? Is that when you went and did your internship with the Mavericks?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough that my dad and Coach Carlisle, obviously most another North Country guy. My dad and him are still very close. So when he kind of found out I was interested in coaching and getting into that for my career, he had offered to, he brought me down to Dallas over the summer, and I got to experience it's kind of like their training camp before they go to the summer league in Vegas. So it's like their rookie and free agent camp. So I got to kind of sit in on that, participate in drills where, it's menial stuff where you're just kind of, maybe you're rebounding, you're passing, you're playing dubbing defense, but it's against, guys who are trying to make it into the NBA. And I had that great experience. And then I went I went for a few days in Dallas, and then I actually went out to Vegas with them so I could kind of, just see and experience it. And Coach Carlisle allowed me to come, which was really great. But while we were there, he told me that they were trying to do this new internship program through the player development coach, Mike Procopio. And they were kind of just doing interviews. And he's like, why don't you just go do it? I was like, okay. So I ended up interviewing for it. And myself and 9 gentlemen were selected. So I was the only girl, which was kind of cool. But it was fun. We got to basically for the year, I lived in Dallas, and anytime they had individual workouts with the player development coach, or if it was group workouts, which is like a lot of like the younger guys or guys who need more work or anything like that, then we'd go and participate in, like I said, rebounding, passing, maybe you're closing out on someone playing dummy defense. But my favorite part was that we got to sit in on practice every day. So as someone who wants to be a coach, where you get to go to a practice of a NBA championship winning coach, and just a first class organization, to see how that's kind of run from the inside, it was an amazing year.
Well, if you were wondering, how you were going to fit on this show, I mean, how many things, Pete and Davis, she already mentioned that has been brought up. Your dad, your grandfather. We haven't even touched on the fact you mentioned SUNY Cortland. You finished at SUNY Cortland. I think half of our guests have a Cortland connection.
Some connection to Cortland. Yeah.
I tend to notice that, or anywhere I go, I meet somebody who's like, "Oh yeah, I graduated in such and such." So pretty cool. But I'm pro Pop. I'm all Potsdam now. So that's
and I think I guess that's where I was leading to with this, was the fact that now all of a sudden you're up here in the North Country. And I've got you marked down. I think you're the 8th SUNYAC coach that we've had the pleasure of speaking with, the 4th from SUNY Potsdam. And, just tell us now that you've kind of been around for a few years, I want you to touch a little bit about your season and what's coming up. But just first, start off with the fact that did you ever envision the day that you'd be coaching in the SUNYACs at SUNY Potsdam, a place where your grandfather made such a big name for himself? And how's that feel? Standing on the sidelines at Maxey Hall.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a little bit surreal. We also run our basketball camp in the summer, and I was talking with our men's coach, Jim Bexell, who I believe did an interview already. And it was just funny because I used to go to Potsdam basketball camp as a kid. So I was there as a camper. And once
we all did.
Yep, I know. If you're from up there, you better go. My grandpa, even if I was like crying about it, my grandpa, anytime I'd go up, he'd be like, all right, we're going to camp. So I was there as a camper. And once I was in college, I then was a counselor there. And now I'm co-director. So I thought that was pretty great. And when I was playing in college and in high school and getting really serious about it, I didn't even know I wanted to get into coaching really. It was kind of like I kind of as many people do, I kind of put the future kind of far away. So once I graduated college, I was kind of like, ooh, now what? So as I was trying to put off the real world, so to speak, that's why I started as a grad assistant, because I wanted to have basketball involved. But it's always been a passion of mine, and obviously being around my father and my grandpa, basketball was my life. I was either watching basketball, playing basketball, watching in person, watching on TV, or going to see my grandpa's games and all that. So kind of to be back here, and then I went to Cortland, had a pretty decent career at Portland for those 2 solid years. So just being able to be a player.
Yeah, 2-time player of the year. You had a pretty decent career. Yeah.
Yeah, it went all right. So, just to kind of be back in the SUNYAC, and now I get to kind of, recruit kids that I think that are SUNYAC kids, and I think that's, the fun part. Then I get to go against my alma mater, which I still haven't beat yet. So that is on my bucket list. So, this was my going into my 4th year. We took over a program that was struggling a little bit, and this past year was my first year with all of my own recruits, and I really, really enjoyed this year. We had a couple things thrown at us, which were unfortunate, but we managed to. We won the most games we had in 11 years, which is pretty fantastic. So, and we had 2 girls that were all conference. So it was up to me. I'd probably have a couple more on there, but the individual success kind of comes with your team success. The more your team is kind of becoming stronger in the conference, the better that they'll do. But this past season, first week of classes, first pickup of the year, our 6'2" center goes up for rebound and tears that ACL. Popped. So I got a phone call, and I was like, I don't think I want to answer this, because I just knew that something was probably wrong, because my players never called me. Nobody calls anymore. They text. So I was like, this is not good. So we actually had nobody this year above 5'9", and we didn't have any seniors. And then my 2 juniors, so the one tore her ACL in pickup, and then we had a soccer player tear her ACL the day before she was supposed to join us. From the soccer season ending, she was supposed to join us, and she ended up tearing her ACL in practice. So we went into the season with, not that we were kind of calling it a wash, but we kind of had no expectations. And the only people we're playing were all freshmen and sophomores, which is a good thing, but a very scary thing. So we started, most of the season, we started our 2 sophomores, Devin and Diamond, and they were the ones who were both 3rd team all conference. Diamond actually led the SUNYAC in assists, and Devin was, I think, 3rd in scoring. And then we had 3 freshmen who would start. We kind of rotated a couple, but Caroline LaFountain was a nice pickup from Saratoga, fantastic shooter. I think she finished. I just know we had 4 players in the top 10 of scoring in the conference, which was nice. And another girl, Jakia Howard, who's from Syracuse, Nottingham High School. She's only 5'6", but she was playing our 5-man spot. But she's probably the most athletic kid I've seen, and she led the conference as a freshman in rebounding, and she was 4th in the country for offensive rebounds and she's maybe 5'6", maybe 5'7" on a good day. So, you know, we had a lot of young talent, which is good because they get to play a lot and get to experience it. But, you know, there are those moments where we get into kind of close games. It's just a matter of us maturing a little bit and, you know,
So
like hunkering down and kind of getting that victory like when it's close. So I think it's a bit of a learning curve.
So young players, how many returning? Do you have any returning seniors, or is it all young players that are coming?
Well, I think it's kind of up to them if they're technically seniors or not. So the two that we're returning are the two that are coming off injury. So academically, they're both seniors. It's just kind of if they want to do a fifth year, maybe not, who knows. And especially, I think it's kind of the beauty and also like the pain of Division III is that kids can just do whatever they want. They could just not come back just because, you know, or maybe something happens financially, or they just, you know, especially now with the pandemic, you know, some kids might decide like, hey, I don't want to go far from home. So it's definitely, we have an all inclinations that everybody is returning. So I obviously bug them every week being like, make sure everybody's coming back. But so we'll be returning pretty much everyone. We have 3 freshmen that are coming in. 2 North Country kids will be joining us, and then another girl from Syracuse.
So what's your outlook for this season? You optimistic, Coach?
Yeah, I am.
Well, of course, if everybody's healthy, of course, but you know.
Yeah, so that's the name of the game. If we can stay healthy, I truly believe we have a great team coming back. Like I said, we have 2 all-conference players returning, and then we had 2 freshmen this year who also were top 10 in scoring. Like I said, one led the conference in rebounding as freshmen. And then, you know, we have some great pieces coming in. You know, we have a couple shooters that come off the bench, and I think one of our, I think a bunch of our freshmen are going to be pretty good shooters. That's the thing that we kind of lacked the last couple years is we have great kids that can get to the basket easily. But now teams are just starting to play us zone and packing in the paint, and we're like, oh, what do we do now? So we just got to get a little bit more consistent on that end. And we struggled rebounding this year, just being so small. So that's definitely going to help us defensively, and rebounding defensively is when we get our center back. So I have all intentions that, you know, we'll have to see what happens this year. Nobody's kind of decided anything yet, like when we're starting, both academically and for sports-wise. It's going to be an interesting season, so we'll see if we, you know, I definitely think we'll have a season. It's just a matter of when are we going to start, and are they going to let us do a full season? Is it just going to be conference games? But for me at this point, with having, let's see, this will be my 5th year and everybody is returning, that is all of my players. We definitely have high expectations going into the season. So hopefully we will be we were knocking on the door. We missed playoffs by 1 game. We were 1 kind of spot out from there, which was tough for me because we had a bunch of games that were just kind of, you know, we lost a couple in overtime, and we had a lead maybe going into the 4th, and we didn't finish it out. So there are definitely a couple like woulda, coulda, shouldas, and I just think we're knocking on the door right now.
So I'm nosy. Who's the 2 coming over from North Country?
We got Kelsey Bennett from Hammond, and we have another girl who is from actually Plattsburgh High School. Her name's Abby Crahan. So they're 2 very capable, good guards. They both can shoot it. Kelsey can shoot the crap out of it, and Abby physically can just kind of fits in with a SUNYAC type player. She's really worked hard, kind of lifting and working out, and I'm glad I got to see her a couple of times this year play, and I think they give us way more depth than we've had in the past.
So I know Joey's got more questions, but I figure I might as well keep going here. So you already discussed the outlook, but right now everybody's kind of limbo of exactly what's going on with you know, classes and this. Have you got any kind of direction that you've been given as far as what's going to happen in the future?
I wish. You know, it's, you know, you hear all these things about this school is doing this school is doing that. We kind of don't have the luxury of doing whatever we want because we are a public school. So we really have to wait for SUNY to give us the okay. I know our school has a plan, and, we have plans that it's like, okay, if it's this, we could do it this way. If it's this, we do this. And if it's this situation, we'll go down this path. But we just haven't. I think the higher ups have made the decision of what we're going to do, but we are not supposed to announce or anything like that. But I'm sure we'll be the last to know. I'm sure we'll be getting to figure it out the same as the public. But kind of the pattern I've seen with other colleges announcing, a lot of schools are going back in the fall, and then a lot of people are talking about not returning after Thanksgiving. So whether they finish the last 2 weeks or so of classes online, or if they just do finals online, or if they try to finish up before Thanksgiving, that was kind of the general thing. But they haven't said, how that would affect athletics, whether or not they're going to let student athletes return, or are they just going to say, hey, winter sports, you'll start January 1st. That's something that we haven't been told yet. So we try, like, as I talk to the team, we do some Skype sessions, or we do Zoom. We're preparing like we're going to be back in the fall. And I told them that we're just going to be preparing like we would normally going into a normal season. And we'll just kind of have to adjust as what's thrown at us.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Go ahead, David.
maybe I'm not understanding. What's the point of returning to school in the fall until Thanksgiving and then not coming back after Thanksgiving? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I think the general idea is there's going to be no breaks. So normally we have like fall break and something around Columbus Day or anything like that. So the idea is that they're canceling those. I think it's basically once everybody goes home for Thanksgiving, they don't want people returning back, just because now you're leaving campus where maybe you've been quarantined pretty well, and now you're going home to see all these different people, and you're coming back. Or, I think, especially in the SUNY system, you have a lot of kids from New York City or those areas that, a little bit more condensed than the North Country. So.
Okay, I knew that. I knew there had to be some explanation. I wasn't seeing it, and then of course that really mucks up with the sports schedules.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if we go down that path. Then will they make an exception for student athletes? Will they let them come back if we get tested? But there are just a lot of hoops we have to kind of go through, and it'll be interesting to see the fall sports and what they're doing. I know there's a lot of stipulations coming back where everybody comes back in August, and I think, you got to wait 2 weeks, make sure everybody's quarantined or tested. And then it's like, you can start out with like minimal players on the field. Like you only can have 10, but it has to be individual workouts. And then it's like, great. Then the next week you can finally have more people on the field or actually like playing and interacting. So it's interesting. It's definitely going to be a very weird year, but as long as we get to play basketball, then that's all that matters to us.
Yeah. Okay.
But after that Thanksgiving break, so that's going to be extended all the way straight through until January. Is that the break they're talking about?
That's what I've saw on, just from the news. Like
it's the first time we've heard of it, so I'm just.
Yeah. I think who was it? I think Cortland might have announced it. Cortland did post something. They were not supposed to, apparently.
Well, they didn't. They sent their email because my son goes to Cortland, and it's funny because our previous show, the last show we did was with Coach Spanbauer, and I mentioned this email to Coach Spanbauer, and he said that's not law, that's just their plan if they come back. So yes.
Yeah. So, and that's what every school kind of has, is that plan, and they kind of have, all right, here's our plan if we decide to come back fully. Here's our plan if we, maybe we do a hybrid of online and in person. And so basically we can't do anything until the higher ups at SUNY or our governor says okay. So we just kind of had playing the waiting game. I'm hoping that we get it figured out kind of by July, not just for like athletics, but for professors. And I teach a couple classes, and we got to figure out, like, are we going to be in person teaching classes, or are we just going to be doing it online, and kind of how we figure that out. So I believe, but everybody in the SUNY, I would assume, would do probably the same stuff, because you can't have one school doing one thing and then another school doing something else. because then that would kind of be unfair if like Cortland or something like says, okay, basketball, you guys can start in November and you can play non-conference. And then if, you know, say our school was like, nope, you're not starting until January. So it just would mess things up. So I'm just going to assume that it's going to be the same for any SUNY school.
So I got one more question for you, Brittany, and then I'll turn it back over to Joey. What was your major in college?
I was kinesiology, exercise science.
Okay, so I'm trying to I'm trying to figure out a lot of people, they've done other majors and all of a sudden they go into coaching,
Yeah.
which had no relationship whatsoever with coaching. So I'm just trying to figure out where yours fits in here. So
yeah, I just always knew growing up, you know, love sports. I didn't really know that I wanted to be a coach. Like I said, my dad, as you know, he played at Syracuse and now he's been a doctor, recently retired, but I'm pretty sure he's in the other room right now reading films, but he works part-time. But he's full-time, what do you call it? He's full-time my recruiting coordinator, as he likes to self-appointed my recruiting coordinator. But I knew I wanted to do something either with sports or the health field. So I was kind of just weighing those options, and exercise science was just something fun for me to learn, just being an athlete, kind of, you know, learning about the body and all that good stuff. And because Cortland actually has a coaching major, and at Potsdam we just started a coaching certificate kind of path. I don't know if it's a minor yet, if it's an official. I think it's a question for Bill Mitchell. He would know the answer to that. I know we are going down that path, so it's kind of nice. We're getting a lot more majors that and minors that compete with other schools in the SUNYAC, you know, because those are the stuff that we kind of needed in the recruiting process. You know, we're getting beat because people want exercise science or they want sports management or, you know, we still get killed when kids want phys ed or nursing. So it's just been great, you know, the last 5-7 years, kind of administration from top to bottom kind of realize, all right, we got to get more students, you know, we have to do a better job recruiting. We have to get majors that are going to compete. So we now at Potsdam have exercise science as a major. That's been in the last few years. We now have sports management as minor, and I believe we have a coaching type certificate and or minor. I'll have to look that up, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, and of course, that all helps out with your recruiting, and that leads to this question, because that's something we talked about a lot with Coach Spanbauer, who really opened our eyes on something when we talked about recruiting, and in the fact that in the SUNYACs, and Coach Pinkerton from SUNY Oswego said this as well, you guys are pretty much confined to the state of New York when it comes to your recruiting, because out-of-state costs for kids coming in is so much more expensive than, so, you know, Coach Spanbauer mentioned, he called it the wall. It's just, you know, there's great talent in the state of New York, but, you know, he's an hour and a half from Scranton, Pennsylvania, which would be easily traveled, but you're crossing state lines. And so he's not able to get those kids from Pennsylvania. Talk about that. So a little bit about it. So 5 years into this and you're recruiting, and obviously, you know, you're confined to New York State, and how much traveling are you doing throughout the state with your recruiting, or how much work do you have your dad doing for you?
Yeah, so he's located in Central New York, so we call him my Central New York recruiting coordinator. So which helps a lot, you know, as I said before, like trying to get to, I think one of the most important things in recruiting is, you know, kind of that face contact, you know, face to face in person. So I try to get to as many high school games, and I try to get, you know, so they can see me there at their games to show that, you know, that's how bad I want you, that I just drove 2.5 hours down here to watch a not so great high school basketball game, just, you know, so I can talk to you afterwards. And I think that's super important. So the old Jeep got some miles on it. I had to get a new one this year. So we're back, we're ready to go. But luckily my mileage has been saved by this quarantine. So, but you know, that was definitely something coming in when I got the job that I knew about. And basically every SUNYAC team were competing against each other for the same kids. You have all these New York State kids, and basically it's like you go to any event, any AAU tournament, you're going to any, what's it called? Like showcase. You're going there. It's always going to be, you're going to turn, you're like, oh, there's Cheryl, there's Corinne, there's Sean. Everybody's going to show up and we're all recruiting the same kids. So you kind of have to find a way to kind of make it your own. I think I went down the path of, I tried to get, just being a JUCO player, like I try to go for JUCO kids. Some coaches, not necessarily in our conference, but I think some people have a stigma against recruiting junior college athletes. But which I find odd, because I'm like, if you can play, you can play. I don't really care where you're from. And then I kind of was doing something different than everybody else. Like I went to New York City and started recruiting a little bit more out of there, because there just wasn't, not a lot of people in the senior were recruiting down there. So our school has kind of started to realize this, and not necessarily from an athletic standpoint, but just from a recruiting and retention standpoint, that we have to kind of try to do those states that are bordering New York. So we kind of have this, it's like I don't know if it's equivalent tuition, but it's like if you're a state bordering New York, there's a certain like financial aid that we do, which is nice. But again, it's not the same as being an in-state tuition, or somebody who gets to use that kind of SUNY, the Excelsior scholarship, which usually end up getting like free tuition out of that, which has actually been pretty great. So it is, Spanny's been doing it a lot longer than I have. And, you just kind of got to find your niche and, try to be out recruiting other people, whether it's not necessarily from different areas, but it's just, different tactics. And so I try to win them over. I try to win them over with my personality. So
right, and you try to kind of find that diamond in the rough that nobody else knows
right.
about, and before their name gets out there.
Yes, and then the worst things that happen is when you're recruiting a kid and you're like, yes, like this is the kid, like maybe they're from a small school and nobody has reached out, and then finally then they just happen to go to like some showcase and like then somebody tweets about them. I'm like, no, or I see their name in the paper. It's like 30 points and 20 rebounds by so and so, and I'm like, no. But I think that's but that's kind of I like it. It's like, in a way, it's frustrating sometimes you don't get the kid, but as a former athlete, I'm a competitor, and it's kind of fun. You're trying to, like chess, you're trying to kind of keep one move ahead of everybody else in the conference. So I find that's kind of how I turn it into more of a positive thing, instead of being recruiting kind of being in a negative, annoying. I will say, it is tougher. I'm sure, Cheryl has Coach Cole up in Plattsburgh has the same issues. We're 2.5 hours from Syracuse. So I'm kind of thankful that my parents were still living there. So if I need to go recruiting somewhere, I can kind of, get a head start. Maybe, I go down there to Syracuse Thursday night, so then Friday I can get out and get somewhere earlier and not have to drive so much. So thank you to my parents for allowing me to do that.
So I got a question I've never asked anybody before, so I'm going to ask you this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it's
test dummy.
Well, no. Do you find that it's easier to recruit your players as a female coach versus a male coach? Because of course the SUNYAC is mixed, both coaches. So I want to see from your perspective what you feel about that.
I would say honestly it depends on what kind of coaching they've had originally. I was fortunate enough where I had both male and female coaches. I've had kids who I've recruited where they only had male coaches, through bitty basketball all the way through high school and AAU. It's been male coaches. So it kind of depends on the kids, if they've, they have a preference one way or another. I think as a female and constantly being told that I look like I'm 20 years old, sometimes I think I find it a little bit easier to kind of get a personal connection and all that. So that might be the advantage I have, whereas maybe some people aren't as comfortable when they have like a male coach, like texting their players. Maybe they don't feel comfortable in that aspect. But yeah, I try to use it to my advantage. But I think just being a former player and being able to kind of relate to them, that's kind of how I try to recruit, at least.
It's a good answer, because I would have never I just
I didn't even think about that. So that was a good
just popped in
point.
my head. It's like, I wonder if this. So.
That's his first good one in a long time.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Joe.
I am glad you're bringing your A game to our
Hell yeah.
interview here.
I never
Brittany,
knew.
what about?
I never knew I had an A game. To be honest with you. But,
I would assume this is the same, but I'll bring it up anyway, just because when you were talking about outside our borders, but we sometimes we're just thinking about the States right now. What about international players? Is that an option?
That would be, yeah. And I have always kind of, going to Potsdam basketball camps, like especially as a kid, it was always like, or you're always getting at least, I don't know, 25% of the camp. A lot of the kids are from Canada, but there's a lot of kind of gray area with it, and there's a lot of kind of hoops you got to jump through for international students, not only from a financial standpoint, whereas I don't know, I think it's pretty expensive. I think it's similar to an outstate. We don't have I don't know, I can't speak for all the SUNY schools, but I know at Potsdam, we used to have, I think, a better international scholarship. We might be doing more now, but we just don't tend to get a lot of kids due to the financial portion of it. But also there's kind of a NCAA aspect to it as well. Like there's a proportionality rule, like you have to have a certain number of, if you have a ton of Canadian athletes coming in, like you need a ton of Canadian regular students also. So I think, I don't know if that's just something that we experience, other people might experience. That'd be really nice. I know a few people in Toronto and a couple programs up there, so we always try to get them to come to camp. So it'd be really nice if we can kind of recruit more from international. I tend to go to Vermont. I try over there a little bit, but usually if anybody contacts me from kind of any state, I'll still shoot my shot, so to speak, until we get to that point where they're like, yeah, I just can't financially do it. So I do try. I think it's more of a 80% New York, and then you got kind of that 20% like just gonna shoot to the moon.
Well, I think you would agree that within, I don't know what the time frame would be, but especially within the last 10 to 15 years, we're big Syracuse fans. It seems like Coach Boeheim always has a product from Canada on the floor.
Right.
Toronto Raptors are your defending NBA champions, so basketball has become really big, and a lot of NBA players they call Canada home now. So obviously Canada has become a hotbed for the sport of basketball.
Yeah, and I mean, which is been great, and I think a lot of Canadian players, they tend to come to the United States. Unfortunately, not to any public schools or anything like that, where we can keep them under the radar. Kind of the premier players are ending up usually at, like a Brewster Academy or any of those kind of private schools and stuff like that. So it would be really great if I think, again, it's always going to be kind of about the money situation, like especially at a public school, about like where this kind of the state is in the moment of how much money we can do for international and out-of-state kids. Obviously, we're always going to say we wish it could be better, but it kind of just is. It is what it is, and that's, as coaches, we kind of just have to adapt.
So if Dad's in the next room studying film right now, does he make it to all the games?
Yeah. So he does, actually, and I tell him he's nuts, but he's pretty much retired, but he still reads films and stuff part-time, and he still he teaches at the med school at Upstate here in Syracuse, but he can do it remotely. My grandma's still in Canton, so he usually comes up and we'll stay there, but he's nuts. So for example, he will come to, we're in our Buffalo swing, and we're at Fredonia Friday night and Buff State Saturday. He will come to my game on Friday and drove from Syracuse to Buffalo, go to Fredonia, drive all the way back Friday instead of just staying over in a hotel, and then maybe he'll do some work or something in the morning, and then drive all the way back out to Buffalo just to catch the game. So I like to say that he does it out of love, but I think he's more so he just can't take it if he has to try to watch it on the TV or the computer, because he might break it. It's funny, if you ever been to one of our games, people just know which one's my dad. He's usually up at like the highest point that can be accessible in the gym, and nobody is around him, which is nice because he's usually trying to like, he tries to keep it cool, but you know, somebody misses a layup, you know, he's a little bit like, come on. So I think
Okay,
he actually is. I think it's more stressful for him that I'm not playing, you know, because as a player, you know, you could hear, I could always hear him in the stands, as kids do. They can hear their parents, and he's always like, shoot, or you know, you mess up and you hear it from
Don't shoot.
Yeah, I know. No, I don't think he's never told me not to shoot.
Yeah.
But it's different because I think as the coach, you know, I can't physically put the basketball in the basket, you know, so it's like almost out of my hands. So I think it's a lot more stressful, like for him. So, but it's kind of funny, and I'm very grateful that he comes to the games to have some support. Depends afterwards if we win or lose. That's the only thing.
I gotta ask. Does he critique?
Like coaching?
Yeah, does
or
he
like my
critique or
players?
tell you what you should be doing, not be doing, or how bad?
It depends on how the game went, and you know, if it's like we lost by, you know, we had a bad game, say we lost by like 20, like he kind of knows what to say when he comes in my office afterwards, and I'm probably already like not cursing, but maybe cursing him. I'm walking around my office like, what the heck did we just do? But no, he's great, and you know, he's pretty smart guy, and you know, obviously his relationship with my grandpa, you know, he's a coach's son, and we have some pretty good basketball chats, and he kind of, you know, he's very positive, I would say. So he's been he helps me with that, because sometimes I forget to step out of player mode and have to step back and kind of remember that I'm the coach. So like, yeah, maybe we didn't play very well, but we did, you know, X, Y, and Z a lot better than we did the game before. So he kind of helps me in that aspect. But I would say he definitely does critique. But so after our game and say he's heading back home, I'll get a call like, you know, 30 minutes after the game, you know, because he wants to talk about it on his drive down to Syracuse. So, you know, so he'll be like, wow, so-and-so was this today, or who's like, you know, he'll be talking about the next, you know, team that we have to play. So I enjoy it. I think it's stressing him out. I usually tell him he's got to relax a little bit.
So how much you take to heart, and how much do you throw it away?
It depends if I want to hear it or not.
Yeah, right.
It depends. It depends if I have that same idea. If he's saying something, I'm like, no, definitely not. But no, we're usually on the same page. Sometimes, I think he likes to, you know, look ahead. He looks ahead a little bit, like, oh, we got to beat this team. We can beat these teams, you know. And I'm more of I'm taking it one game at a time type of deal. So, you know, and so it's kind of like that. But we usually have a pretty good rapport, and he kind of knows when I want to hear it and when I don't, and when I need to, you know, maybe he thinks I'm, you know, maybe we had a bad couple of games, or maybe we should have won one. So he's pretty good at, you know, reading the room, so to speak.
My observation of him was that he always had a kind of a pretty wicked sense of humor. Is that
yeah,
fitting?
He's good. He's almost as good as me.
Okay.
He's you know, we're pretty good. So we have we have a pretty good rapport, and we started, both he and I don't know why, never had seen the Office. Are you guys fans of?
Oh yeah, I've seen every episode.
So
and the British version.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I heard that might be better, but you know, he and I we're pretty witty. We can go back and forth. But we had never seen it, so we had watched it last summer for like the first time all the way through. But he just quotes all the time. He has a Dunder Mifflin. he has a Dunder Mifflin T-shirt, and but yeah, I think we're pretty similar in that aspect. Or he'll tell, you know, lots of jokes, or like jokes that my grandpa used to tell, or stories about whatever. But I have a good Stan story. Would you like to hear my Stan story?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually had a couple of mine who played on Potsdam for a little bit, and then he was a student assistant, and so we would just hear like the times he would be talking to some kid before the game, and you know, he's telling the kid like, oh, you're gonna drop 50 on him, like you're gonna be so great today, like la 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 la, and then you like ask the, you know, like, who is that kid? And you know, my grandma was like, oh, he doesn't play. Like, but he just like would say that to a kid before the game, like, oh, you're gonna kill him. But the funniest story I heard was he walked into, I think it was like pickup, or it might have been like the first day of like practice of the year or something. And he walks over to one of the players or coaches, and he says, he's like looking around the gym. He's like, where are all the tall guys? Are they in the fitness center? Because like I guess he looked around the gym and like, you know, like everybody was like super short or whatever. So practice is like, he's like, are they in the fitness center? Are the good players?
Are the good players?
So I think his humor got, you know, a little more harsher with age. So that was always kind of fun, but he always kind of liked to poke fun at the guys, but that was kind of his favorite thing, was his relationships with the players. So he had a good joker too. One
of my favorite things with I saw Hal do was it was at Potsdam camp. It was at the end of the day when the counselors got together and played a pickup game, and he's defending a guy who's dribbling down. He couldn't get away with this today, but he's defending a guy who's dribbling the ball down the court. He pulls a cap gun out of his shorts and shoots him. Bang, 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 bang. And, you know, at the time it was hilarious, but like I said, you couldn't get away with that today. You know, somebody would have a fit, but
that's funny.
But, you know, it's like, where do you come up with that idea?
I don't know. I'm sure if my mom saw it, she'd probably roll her eyes and be like,
probably, yeah.
So my grandma would be like, what are you doing? But the point is, did the guy score?
No.
Then he did his job.
Absolutely. You know,
my dad would say, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to bring this up, but now the framework has been laid. So I can go ahead now. So my son is the manager for Coach Spanbauer at SUNY Cortland, and so I was at your home game against SUNY Cortland this year, and I'm sitting in the stands watching your game. I'm sitting behind Cortland's bench up near the top, and my wife and I are sitting there, and we start hearing some bellowing from a gentleman to our right, and I had said to my wife, so the coach of SUNY Potsdam's dad played for Coach Boeheim, played for Coach Hauerhan as the Joe Jakowski Award winner, Hal Cohen, and I said, he's probably here somewhere. And all of a sudden, I start hearing that voice, and I'm looking over, and I said, "Well, bald guy, boy, he seems he's really focused on this game." And it was a mixture. It was a mixture of referees and some of your girls making mistakes, and maybe you. I don't know.
Oh, sure.
I finally figured it out. I said, "Katie, that's how Cohen."
That would be the coach's dad.
That's the guy.
It definitely depends, but mostly it is referees. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes I'll hear 2-3, go 2-3, you know, or something like that, or go 3-2. But it's fun for me because, you know, we stream all of our games, and we get the film afterwards. We can watch the game, so it depends on where he's sitting and where the camera's panned in or out. So it's usually next to our scoreboard. He happens to be sitting there. So like when something bad happens, they just show him, and he's just sitting in the stands, and he's just like, you know, or he throws his, you know, maybe throws his hands up. So
well, you can say
we have to reel him back in sometimes.
You definitely can say he's all in. He's not just going. He is all in. I totally got that.
So he teaches, like I said, at the med school. So usually on one of the first few days, he like will ask people questions like, "Oh, where are you from? Like, anybody here go to JD's? Anybody from Syracuse?" Kind of a thing. And usually one of his questions he always asks, "Does anybody know any basketball players that need to be recruited?" So he always goes through his class and like asks people like, "Do you know anybody that plays basketball? Anybody got eligibility? You know, all that stuff." So he's definitely locked in, I would say. I just think it's more so because I'm not playing anymore, so he's kind of bored. So he's got to have something to do.
Well, you know, you're talking to your dad. He is obviously somebody that is worthy of coming on this show as well. We'd love to have him. If you could talk
I would definitely.
We would love to. I mean, he was our first ever Joe Jakowski Award. I think he's the first name on the plaque.
I saw that plaque this year somewhere in Maxey Hall. It was in one of our offices, actually. It's kind of funny.
Well, and like I say, his high school coach, I mean, obviously we could talk about Coach Boeheim all day, but his high school coach was is good friends of Dave, Pete, and myself. That's a St. Lawrence Central grad, Jerry Howard, a great man. So I would love to have your dad on for.
Yeah,
for
I get coach's texts throughout the year too.
Yeah.
So usually I'll get a good text from him, and if we have a good win, he'll send me some love and or keep it up if we're struggling. So love Coach Howard. Good guy.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Well,
I definitely will convince my dad to be on the show. So.
Oh, that'd be great.
He would
be
you guys would need about 12 hours of film time.
We got it. We
can bump him up to an hour and a half. If
that's right. Absolutely.
Perfect.
We could do a 2-part show.
There you go.
Well, Brittany, I got to tell you, I know Pete's getting ready to sign us off here, but I want to tell you, I'm so glad that we had you on, and now that we've talked to both you and Coach Bechtel, I think Pete and Dave would agree. SUNY Potsdam basketball is in great hands right now.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
It is in good hands, and we're excited to know that that basketball is back, at Maxey Hall and coming back to the standard we grew up with. So
definitely
the glory days, so to speak.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on, and I really enjoy watching you guys' stuff. So. I think it's great, and I think it's great for the North Country area as well.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Brittany, I really appreciate you coming on our little show here, but we're getting good numbers. So hopefully this will bump us up, and hopefully
I hope so.
maybe we'll get some recruiting for you out of this. You never know.
Hey, I think you got to lead off your next show with that. I think
there we go.
Anybody's interested? Anybody interested? Call
That's right. On. That's right. Well, thanks a lot, Brittany.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, everybody, for ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show, Joey Realm, Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Gosselin, our special guest, Brittany Cohen. That's it for this evening. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.